Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Glenn Close is still with us here, but let's get my next guest out. He is one of the country's funniest writers and performers. It is Mr. David Baddiel. Have you met Glenn? Hey, how are you, David?
I'm good, how are you?
You're looking great. Well, now, listen, here's the weird thing about your life, I think. David, who I've known for many years and admired as a comedian, and you're always somewhat an adult comedian, I thought, very frank. But now you have this very successful new career as an author of children's books.
Yes.
So how'd that happen?
Well, what happened was, one day my son, Ezra, said to me, Dad, why doesn't Harry Potter run away from the Dursleys, which is the horrible Muggle family that Harry Potter has to stay with when he's not at Hogwarts? Why doesn't he run away from them and try and find some better parents? So I quite like the idea that, like, if you didn't like your parents, you could just piss off and find some others. You didn't have to contact social services or anything like that. And I created a world in which kids can choose their own parents.
So this is the Parents Agency, is that right?
Agency,
OK,
yeah.
OK. And that's been a substantial hit for you, hasn't it?
It has, yeah.
Now, so what are you like as a dad, then? Are you, when your son suggested that, was he actually thinking, I would like to get away from you?
Yes, that's what he was saying. That's what was in Ezra's subconscious and indeed conscious. No, I think I'm all right.
Because you have two children, don't you?
I have two children, Ezra and Dolly. Okay. Dolly is my daughter, who is 14. But what I'd like to think about my kids, demonstrating that I'm not a bad parent, is they are pretty funny, I think, my kids. And not in a kind of, you know, oh, the things they say. Yeah. In a genuine way. I was watching telly the other day with Ezra. He's 11, and an advert came on. It said, Red Bull gives you wings. And Ezra said, and diabetes. And I should say, obviously, it doesn't give you diabetes, and other diabetes-inducing drinks are available. But nonetheless, I think that's like a proper joke.
That's a proper joke. He's a smart kid.
Joke. Yeah, he's a smart kid.
OK, so now here's this is a remarkable thing that David's doing, because David has a new live show starting.
Yes.
It's called My Family, Not the Sitcom. Opens 10th of May here in London at the Menier Chocolate Factory. And I've seen it, and I think it's the best work, the most interesting work you've ever done.
Thank you.
Tell me about what inspired you to write this particular show.
Well, it's quite a complicated thing, because it's about my parents, and my mum died in late 2014, and my dad has dementia. And I thought, well, I want to make something of this. I don't want to just let it be the terrible thing that it is. And I noticed at my mum's funeral, a lot of people were going on to me about how wonderful she was and what a wonderful woman. And I thought, well, yeah, OK, but if all you can say about someone when they go is that they were wonderful, then you're not saying anything, I don't think. To really remember someone, you have to call up their weirdnesses and their madnesses and their flaws, I think.
You're not saying something substantial about them. You're kind of mouthing a socially acceptable platitude, but you're not really getting into the heart of the person.
Yeah, you're not at all. And my mum, she was a nutter. Right, and I think she was a brilliant nutter, and I think the show is like a very disrespectful celebration of her life and my dad's life, and you know the way that he is at the moment.
Well, I met your mum at a few of your gigs, and she would often want to join in. You were on stage performing, and she would sometimes, I noticed, shout out from the audience.
She was a big heckler of me, my mum. Sometimes they were kind of mumsy heckles. I remember once I was doing a gig in Cambridge, and it was in the 90s, and so I had a pint of beer on stage, and at one point these kind of lads in the audience egged me on to drink the pint of beer in one go. So, you know, God love me, I did it. I drank the pint of beer in one go. As I put it down, I heard my mum shout out, I hope you've had something to eat tonight. Most mumsy heckle ever.
Most mumsy heckle, no doubt about it. Yeah. But sometimes she would be, not negative, but she would sometimes, it wasn't always on your side, was it?
No, that's right. I think my mum, she just really loved the idea of joining it, and sometimes she got it a bit wrong. Because I think because people think of her as, like, you know, obviously she was a Jewish mum, so therefore proud of everything her son did. No, right? I don't know if everyone remembers Baddiel and Skinner Unplanned, but I used to do this show with Frank Skinner on ITV, where me and Frank just used to talk to an audience about whatever came up. And we had a secretary person from the audience. They used to write down what we talked about.
So this was a wholly improvised show on the evening, and they would have someone from the audience. Once again, you didn't plan who this would be in advance, and that person would keep a record of what we discussed.
Yeah, what was being talked about. It was just a sort of device, really. And I knew that my mum would be desperate to be that person when she came. Frank wasn't too sure when that came up.
And you can understand why.
Yeah, I can understand why. But if you listen closely to what my mother shouts out from the audience when we're discussing it...
OK, have a look at this.
Look at the spot you've put me in now. 'Cause if I say no,
Yeah.
I've
never
robbed an
talk to
old
you
lady of her
again.
dearest wish. I haven't done that for you. If I say yes, the show will be shit.
Yes.
I mean, I can't win.
No, that's
It
true.
always is.
What? You see, she's already got a round of applause.
So very feisty character.
Very feisty character. A round of applause for saying that my show is shit. Led by my dad. I don't know if you noticed that. My dad was actually starting that applause. Yeah. And she was a very forthright woman. And one of the things about her, and I do explore this in great depth in my show, is she was much more upfront about sex, my mother, than you would expect for a lovely, as I say, wonderful Jewish mother. She was very keen to tell you about her sex life and... yeah, this was difficult for me. And on this particular show, the same show, she does get to be the secretary, and we start talking, I don't know if you remember this, we start talking, me and Frank, about Kinga. Now, it's not... they can't remember who that is, but Kinga was a woman who became famous very briefly for pleasuring herself with a wine bottle in the Big Brother garden.
Yeah,
Do you remember that?
she was on a reality show. She had 1 or 2 drinks too many.
Yeah.
It seemed like a good idea to her at the time.
Yeah,
I think she'd forgotten she had 37 cameras pointed at her.
She forgot that. Yeah, and so you might think, well, that's a tough thing to talk about with your mum, right there on TV, but not as complicated as my mother's opinion on the subject.
OK, so look at this.
What do you think about it, Sarah?
And why not? It's nice to do such things outside in the open.
You know, this is something I never thought I'd have to say to my mother, but there is an R in masturbate.
So she was very, very upfront.
She was very upfront, although I like the bit. There's a moment in that clip where, having been so upfront, she then becomes like a little old lady, saying, "Oh, I'd better correct that. I'd better correct that," when she does the R. I love that bit.
And so this, in a way, it's like a celebration of her, but it's also very honest, very revealing about all those aspects of her life, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's also about my dad as well.
Yeah.
And my dad is still alive, and he's got dementia, and that is a very complicated thing to talk about, but I decided I wanted to come out and talk about it because I think there is... What else can you do with these things, you know? What else can you do? There's no point in just being silent about them. Obviously, they are very grim, but why not try and find the comedy about it? And with my dad, he's got a thing called Pick's disease, which is a type of frontal lobe dementia whereby you get short-term memory loss, but you also get... And actually, I've got them written down here because I keep them with me just in case. My dad, the symptoms of Pick's disease include irritability, sexual disinhibition, rudeness, inappropriate behaviours, swearing and extreme impatience. And when the neurologist first told me that list of symptoms, I said, "Sorry, does he have a disease or have you just met him?" In my mind, he doesn't have Pick's disease, he has Colin Baddiel's disease. It's his disease.
And so, but you are, I guess, you are looking after him and seeing him on a regular basis. Does he know you're doing the show about him? Does he have memories that last long enough for him to know that's going on?
No, I couldn't... I mean, I have talked to him about it, but no, he wouldn't hold that memory for long enough, I don't think.
Yeah.
And I also think these things are going to happen to all of us, aren't they? So we might as well make fun of these bullies as they take us down. That's what I think.
Yeah. Glenn, do you...
I want to say something as well, because my sister, you know, has come out really as living with bipolar disorder, and her son has schizoaffective disorder, which is basically schizophrenia with elements of bipolar. And we decided as a family that the best thing we could do was to talk about it.
Yeah.
To talk openly about it, because it affects
And also
so
to
many
laugh.
people.
Presumably it's okay to laugh.
Yes, it's okay to laugh. So I really applaud you,
Thank you
for what you're doing.
Are you actually going to applaud me?
I will applaud you.
I've been applauded by Glenn Close. That's what I wanted.
Oh, it's a wonderful thing.
Thank you.
You were applauded by Glenn Close, but you had to tell her to do it. So
It's terrible. Yeah, it's not the same, is it?
also, she hasn't seen the show yet. I mean,
No.
I don't think you should clap yet. Go and see it. It might be
Could be
shit.
shit.
Yeah, exactly.
It might be. Who knows?
Are you that honest with your family, though? Are you honest with stuff like he is with his kids? Have you always been open about...
My daughter doesn't want to hear anything about me and sex in any way whatsoever.
Have you tried? I don't
No,
mean,
no.
I mean, talking to her about it. Have you ever tried?
But she's now 27, right?
Right.
So-
Okay. It's good. I hope she knows about it.
Yeah, I
by
think
now.
she does. I think, yeah.
So when she was younger, though, she didn't want to think that Mum was a sexual person in any way.
No, what child does?
But I didn't have much choice with that because my dad, to talk about again, makes the most incredible noises during sex. And when I was a kid, right, I had a room next to my parents' room. I didn't know what it was.
Do we want to hold it? Do we
It's
want to
all
hear
right.
this story?
We do.
I just want to check.
Yeah. For years, I thought there was a wounded walrus in my parents' bedroom. It's an incredible
Could you
noise.
give us an idea of what it sounds like?
I can tell you a story about it if you want.
OK, tell us one more.
When I was about 16, a friend of mine stayed the night, and he slept in my bedroom, and I went to another room, and my bedroom was closer to my parents' bedroom. And I actually said to him, look, my parents might have sex, and they make quite weird noises when they have sex. Is that OK? Don't worry about it. And he was, like, really teenage about it. He was like, I know what sex sounds like. Don't worry. OK,
Yeah.
so fine. So then I'm in the other bedroom, 4 o'clock in the morning. He knocks on my door, this bloke. He's ashen. He's ashen. And he says, Dave, I think your mum's died. Honestly. And I said, what? And he said, I know it sounds weird, but your dad is making noises like I heard my uncle make at my auntie's funeral. And I said, they're having sex, it's fine.
OK. All of that and more in My Family, not the sitcom. It's David Baddiel's new live show, and it is, I think, one of the most funniest, but also one of the most thought-provoking things I've ever seen
Thank you very
do.
much.
It's from the 10th of May at the Chocolate Factory. David Baddiel, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Still to come, we'll be joined by Gillian Anderson, Marlon Wayans, and we have music from Carrie Underwood, so don't go away.